What is up, guys? So in this video, I'll be doing something that I've really done like 4 years in a row now. This would be the 4th year in a row, which is go over the best seasons of the Arrowverse. However, this time around, it's going to be a little bit different. Up until this point, I've always made a ranking video where I ranked all the seasons of the Arrowverse, which used to be a lot easier. In the first time I did that, there were only 16 seasons, then there were 20, now there are 29 seasons, which is not only too many seasons, but also I don't really have the time to do this. I don't really have a lot of time, and to make a video where I rank 30 different seasons, it's not really a possibility, as it would take me just way too long, and that would mean that I would just post less videos, which I already don't really post all that many videos. So with that in mind, I can't really make a ranking for all 30 seasons. Instead though, I can very easily make a top 10 list, which is what I'm doing here. I'll also go over a good amount of honorable mentions that I will mention very briefly. Now, the shows I'm counting for this list are Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, Batwoman, and Stargirl, the last of which is not 100% technically considered Arrowverse, but I think after the first season and after the fact that they released all these posters for just the Arrowverse shows, and they're all so similar to each other, and Stargirl got one too, I think that it is basically Arrowverse, and I want to consider it Arrowverse, so I'm counting it for this list, and also upcoming lists that I'll be making afterwards. With that in mind, let's begin with the 10th best season of the Arrowverse right now.
When we hear the call of duty, we're willing to make that sacrifice.
Oh my God.
We just ran out of time.
We can't stop what's coming.
I have to prepare the team for this crisis.
So The Flash Season 6 is a bit of a mixed bag. The first 9 episodes, which is the build-up to the crisis and the Bloodwork arc, it's genuinely one of the best, if you want to call it, seasons of The Flash ever, along with Seasons 1 and 2. Everything was great, and an amazing villain in Bloodwork with some great build-up. The emotional stakes leading up to the crisis worked so well, and just the lead-up to the crisis, the build-up, was some of the most exciting things that the Arrowverse has ever done. Whether or not you actually thought that the crisis was as good as it could have been, everyone has to admit that the build-up to the crisis, especially on Arrow and The Flash, was genuinely so exciting. The visuals of these first 8 episodes were way better than The Flash had been in a while, and Barry felt very badass for a lot of it. So those 9 episodes were great, and with those 9 episodes, I thought that this could end up being one of the best seasons of The Flash. But then the rest of the season was a little bit subpar. We had some good episodes here or there, but those episodes were standalone episodes, and the season-long storyline with Eva McCulloch as the main villain, and the focus on Iris as the main character in the Mirrorverse wasn't great, and it was not interesting, and they could have done so much more, especially with the post-crisis world that they had to play with. So The Flash Season 6, it could have been a lot higher on the list. Honestly, it could have been considered one of maybe the top 5 best seasons of the Arrowverse, just based off the first 9 episodes, but because of all the episodes afterwards, it's just not as good, so it is at number 10 on this list.
All coming together in the worst way.
Now the moment is upon us. Here we go.
Bye.
You kill me, you become me. Either way.
You lose, Barry.
The Flash Season 3 is a season that I have grown to appreciate over time. After the first 2 seasons, Season 3 felt like a disappointment in comparison, but since then we've gotten a lot worse things like Season 4 and 5 in the second half of Season 6, so Season 3 now looks even better in comparison, and it looks a lot better. The thing is, though, there are things still that I don't like about this. I really am disappointed by Flashpoint. The ending wasn't exactly great either, but honestly, everything in between is genuinely pretty good. The whole Savitar mystery, it worked pretty well. Savitar himself was a very threatening and cool-looking villain, and the season-long storyline was not bad. It was actually a lot better than most season-long storylines that we have gotten. Also, the season overall looks a lot better than most seasons of The Flash too. Certainly a lot better than Season 5 specifically, but the season overall, it's a lot better than I remember it being. It's a lot better than we gave it credit for being when it initially came out, and that's just because compared to Seasons 1 and 2, it did look like a very big downgrade, but it's not really that big of a downgrade since it actually is pretty good. I will say though that they never really reached the highs of The Flash's Season 6's first 9 episodes, but also they never really got close to the lows of the second half of Season 6, so I mean, comparing the two, I think Season 3 is a bit better, even though Season 6 had its moments and it did have a higher peak.
Domination.
There's no such thing as ninjas, you idiot.
Tell that to Chuck Norris.
You all have no idea what you're up against.
Hello, Eobard.
Mr. Dark.
Legends of Tomorrow did not have a very good first season. I mean, there are some things it did well, but there are other things that it really didn't. And then afterwards, like in season 3 and 4 and 5, it kind of lost sight of what it was trying to be, and especially in season 4 and then also in season 5. I don't really care about the show anymore, and it saddens me because while this show never really had that many good seasons, there was one really, really good season that perfectly exemplifies what I wanted to see from Legends of Tomorrow, and we did get that in one season, and that is season 2. This season fully embraces the DC universe. We get the Justice Society of America, we get the Legion of Doom, we get the Legends of Tomorrow, which mostly at this point consists of actual DC heroes actually using their powers and using their abilities. It's much more comic booky than any other season, except for season 1, but it also does all those things better than season 1. Since season 1, what it focused on, Vandal Savage and the Hawks, not really as interesting as the JSA and the Legion of Doom. This is what I wanted to see out of every season of Legends of Tomorrow, a very exciting time travel show where we do see these other corners of the DC universe, something that, again, they lost sight of that in season 3, and then especially in season 4 and in season 5. But Legends of Tomorrow season 2 is really where the show knew what it was doing and knew what it wanted to be, and ended up being one of the best seasons of the Arrowverse and in the top 10.
The staff chose me, and I choose you.
I never thought there'd be another Starman.
Stargirl.
Stargirl.
Stargirl Season 1 is way, way better than I expected it to be in a lot of ways. First of all, let's talk about, technically, it is probably the best looking season of the Arrowverse ever. I don't think it has a higher budget, but the way they use the budget that they do have for the costumes, for the special effects, for the practical effects, for the way they shoot everything, for the lighting, it looks way better than any other Arrowverse show. I mean, there are certain episodes of, The Flash and other shows that do look really, really good, but Stargirl kind of looks consistently good for the entirety of the season, and I think it has to get props for that. I mean, the costumes are way better than the costumes we've gotten from the Arrowverse. There are some good Arrowverse costumes, but basically every single costume here is really, really top notch. The characters are all great. Stargirl herself is probably the best live-action female main character that DC has ever given us, at least from a TV show. I mean, she's really that great of a character, and Stripe as well, and their relationship as well. It's really, really heartwarming and really, really done well in the season. The season also has some amazing villains, maybe the best roster of villains that we've ever gotten from an Arrowverse season. I mean, the Injustice Society, Dragon King and Sportsmaster and Brainwave and Icicle, the main villain, they're all top-notch, very threatening, very layered villains that we got in this season, and all of that coming together along with the fact that it's not 23 episodes long, it's only 13 episodes, a very compact season with well-paced storylines, no filler at all, and while there are things that are left out because of how short it is, and maybe it could have added maybe 1 or 2 more episodes, I would prefer a 13 long episode season over a 23 episode long season any day of the week because of the pacing, because they don't have any filler, and because they don't have to stretch anything out. Making all of these things makes Stargirl Season 1 honestly one of the best seasons the Arrowverse has ever given us.
History is repeating itself.
Oliver?
Hi, Mom.
Much like Stargirl Season 1, Arrow Season 8 is a much shorter season, as it's even shorter. It only has 10 episodes, one of which is a Crisis episode, another one of which is a spin-off episode. Stephen Amell isn't even in it at all, so it doesn't really have a lot of episodes, and yet, it is one of the best seasons of the Arrowverse for a lot of reasons. It has that thing in common with Stargirl Season 1, and it has something in common with The Flash Season 6, which is the build-up to the Crisis. Like I said, some of the most exciting things we've ever gotten from the Arrowverse, a very exciting time for the universe. Arrowverse, where all these shows were building up to something so exciting. Arrow Season 8 had that more than any other season, as basically the entire storyline of the season, and when I say basically I mean 100%, was just crisis buildup. That was the point of the season. One, that Oliver, it's the end of the show, it's the end of Oliver's career as the Green Arrow, but the main thing was the buildup to the crisis, and those two things were 100% connected as well. The season had a lot of things over previous seasons of Arrow, like characters who were missing that kind of benefited the season, the focus on the characters that they needed to focus on, each episode having these tributes to previous seasons that were really, really fun, really exciting, and really, really well done. And overall, with the ending as well, with Oliver leaving, Oliver dying really, it was handled very well. It was basically a perfect ending to Arrow with all its ups and downs. They did pull off the ending, and Arrow Season 8 is one of the best seasons of Arrow as well as the Arrowverse.
I'd be guilty.
The only way to keep this family safe is to stop asking questions.
Moira Queen, you have failed this city.
From the last season of Arrow, now we get the first season of Arrow. Arrow has given us some good seasons, some great seasons even, and season 1 is one of them. This is a season that is 23 episodes long, so it is technically a little bit too long, but that is true for basically the entirety of the top 5. And for the most part, you don't really notice how long these seasons are because of how gripping the storylines are. Yes, there is some filler, and yes, there is some storylines that are stretched out too much, but the season-long storylines, and especially the main villains, really help these storylines and these seasons feel like they maybe deserved 23 episodes, and our season 1 is no exception. The season-long storyline here is amazing. It's clearly the one that's been thought out the most. It's between this and The Flash season 1 because they had so much time, and that was the whole concept of the show, was all into this first season, and the season-long storyline was very thought out, very well handled, and it also helps that Malcolm Merlyn was a great villain, an amazing rivalry between the main hero and the main villain. The actors were also top-notch in this season. So overall, Arrow Season 1, while it does have its flaws, like specifically it is a little bit too long, you don't really notice it for the most part because the storyline is so gripping, the main villain is so exciting to watch, and the rivalries between the main hero and the main villain is so great that it does give us one of the most exciting and one of the best seasons of the Arrowverse.
Who are you? My name is Jay Garrick, and your world is in danger.
We were never enemies, Barry. I'm not the thing you hate.
Now, The Flash Season 2, much like Arrow Season 1, does have some filler. There are storylines that are a little bit stretched out, and the season did not need to be 23 episodes long. However, also much like Arrow Season 1, it doesn't really matter all that much. You don't really notice all that much because, first of all, the season-long storyline is very well done. There's a lot of exciting things going on, like the exploration of the multiverse, or the introduction to the multiverse, and the exploration of Earth 2, along with, more than anything, the main villain, Zoom. Zoom is one of, if not the most threatening and menacing villain we've ever gotten from the Arrowverse. His rivalry with Barry is very, very good, and his storyline and his origin story as well, where he comes from, it's incredibly interesting. Like I said, they explore Earth 2 in that way through Zoom, and it gives us a very, very interesting storyline. Overall, The Flash somehow managed to pull off a season that, while not being technically as good as the first, is almost as good, and they somehow managed to pull that off after pulling off such a great first season. They gave us another one with a similar concept, as the main villain is still a speedster, but they built on that with the multiverse, making the speedster feel way different than he does to the first one, especially compared to the comics, where they have the same costume, very, very similar, not technically similar storylines, but they look very similar, they act similarly. Here, they don't act similarly at all, so they made Zoom his own character with a much better design than he has in the comics, which I do appreciate, and I think they handled that very, very well, making, again, I know I said this a lot already, The Flash Season 2 one of the best seasons of the Arrowverse, basically along with everything else on this list.
If they're wearing a mask, they get a bullet.
Once you let the darkness inside, it never comes out.
Arrow Season 2 is arguably the best season of the Arrowverse. Like, if you were to tell me that your favorite season of the Arrowverse is Arrow Season 2, which a lot of people do think that, I would understand, because it is maybe the most consistently great season of the Arrowverse. There isn't really a bad episode. There isn't even a subpar episode. Every episode is at least good, and they also go to great and amazing. I don't really know why I put it lower than the other two. I just don't feel like it's as good. I don't really have as close of a connection to the season. However, it is still number 3, and I still definitely really like it. Oliver and Slade's rivalry is obviously amazing. Deathstroke himself is maybe the best villain of Arrow. Obviously, I don't think he's the best, but I do, again, understand if you do think he's the best, and in terms of a character, he's one of the best characters that Arrow has ever given us. The season-long storyline is really good. The fight scenes are great. The character development is very well handled, and even the flashbacks are incredibly exciting. Something I didn't mention for season 1, but that is also true for season 1, and really no other season other than seasons 1 and 2, maybe a little bit in season 5, but we'll get to that in a minute. Overall, Arrow season 2, again, like I said, probably the most consistently well done season of the Arrowverse. I just don't think it's as exciting maybe, or maybe not as good as the number 2 and 1 spots, but again, I do understand if you disagree.
Here.
Just your everyday kind of bad guy shootout. My name is Barry Allen, and I am the fastest man alive.
Much like Arrow Season 1, it's clear that The Flash Season 1 was the show. It wasn't like a show that they planned out for a couple years. They planned out the first season, or at least that's what I think they did. They pitched Season 1, and then they went from there. They planned out Season 1 for a very long time. They planned it out in a way that was they planned it out very meticulously. Like, they planned it out from the very beginning, and that's something that you can see. Every single little detail, every bit of foreshadowing, it all leads up to exactly where it should, and it leads up to the most intense moments possible with everything coming together. On top of that, Reverse Flash is an amazing villain. Much like Deathstroke, I don't think he's the best villain in the Arrowverse, and I don't think the rivalry is the best either, but I do understand if you do think that, and I wouldn't really argue with that because I don't really have an argument against it, because the rivalry is amazing, Reverse Flash is an amazing villain, and The Flash Season 1 is inarguably the best season of the show. It's perfectly planned out. It's an incredibly intense season. It's very exciting since we've never really seen things like this before in live action with the character, and the fact that they pulled it off so well is, even at this point, it's still pretty surprising 6 years later. With that in mind, The Flash Season 1 is the second best season of the Arrowverse, but much like Arrow Season 2, I would not be surprised, and I wouldn't really argue with you if you said it's the best. Before we get to number 1, I want to go over some honorable mentions, seasons of the Arrowverse that are not on this list and are not in the top 10, but also would not have been in the bottom 10 or the dishonorable mentions of the negative list, which does give us a good amount of seasons. From Arrow, there's Arrow Season 3, which is a lot better than we initially gave it credit for, much like The Flash Season 3, Arrow Season 6, which has its ups and downs and is by no means great, but it does have its good moments, as well as Arrow Season 7, which is a very similar situation to The Flash Season 6, where it started off really good and then kind of lost track of what it was trying to do, and it wasn't nearly as good. I came close to making it a tie, number 10, a tie between Arrow Season 7 and The Flash Season 6, but Arrow Season 7 has less things going for it. Like, it doesn't have the crisis build up, and even in the prison storyline, there are other storylines that aren't really all that good and aren't better than the rest of Season 7, so it didn't make it into the top 10. From The Flash, Season 4 is a lot better than, I like it more than most people do. It does have my favorite episode ever, and it still didn't make it to the list, but I don't think it's terrible. Legends of Tomorrow Season 3, I did mention that it's not as good as Season 2, which is true, but it's also nowhere near as bad as Seasons 4 or even 5, so it is an honorable mention. Supergirl does get one season here, Supergirl Season 4, mostly because of Lex Luthor, but it is overall not a terrible season, and Black Lightning also gets a season here, Season 3, which is miles better than the first two seasons. It does a lot of interesting things with the Outsiders. It also has a good villain in Gravedigger, so those are the honorable mentions, and with that in mind, let's move on to number 1.
No, John, I'm on the side that's going to put Chase away. I'm sorry.
Not that.
I already told you, Oliver, everyone that you care about suffers. Everyone.
So you probably saw this coming if you've seen the previous versions of this video, but I have not changed my mind on my favorite season of the Arrowverse. However, I do think I have changed my mind on what is the best season of the Arrowverse, because I don't think, honestly, Arrow Season 5 is the best season. It's not as consistently good as the previous, 4 placements on this list, Arrow Season 1 and 2 and the Flash Seasons 1 and 2, because it's not as meticulously planned out, it's not as well planned out, and the seasonal storyline does not justify 23 episodes nearly as much as those previous seasons. Plus, there are more episodes that are just not as good. Despite all of these things, I just can't help but love this season more. Maybe because of nostalgia, maybe because of personal bias for I watched this season, and then right after that, it was mainly because of this season that I got my YouTube channel. I don't necessarily know why I love this season so much, but I can't help but love it. I love the tone of the season. It's very different from other seasons of Arrow. It's a little bit darker, a little bit grittier, and I really, really like it. I love the action scenes. The fight scenes are so much better than any other season of Arrow, and it's crazy how much better it is here. And on top of anything, I love Adrian Chase. I love Prometheus, and the rivalry between Oliver and Chase is something that it's better than any other rivalry we've ever seen before. It's just so gripping every single time they have a scene together. From the moment that Chase is revealed to be Prometheus, it's every single scene they have together is some of the best written scenes on Arrow ever, the most intense scenes on Arrow ever, and even the most intense episodes. I mean, there's a whole episode dedicated to basically just them talking to each other. There's a whole bunch of flashbacks in the background, but just them when it's in the present day. It's just them basically having their main hero, main villain rivalry, and it is absolutely the best episode that we've ever gotten from the Arrowverse. I'm talking about Arrow Season 5, Episode 17. Capuchon. It's my favorite episode of the Arrowverse, and that's mainly due to the rivalry between Oliver and Chase. So yes, this season does have some duds, and it's not technically as good as previous seasons, but I do think that the highs of this season and what this season does right is better than any other season of the Arrowverse, and I just can't help but love this season, which you probably already knew if you've seen previous versions of this same video. With that in mind, Arrow Season 5 is the best season of the Arrowverse. I don't think it'll ever be dethroned, at least not for me, but I would love to see more seasons that are as good in the future. Let me know your list in the comments down below, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.